I found 47 SD cards in my boyfriend's desk drawer, each one labeled with a date. The oldest one was from 3 years ago, 6 months before we started dating. I wasn't snooping. At least, that's what I keep telling myself. I was just looking for a phone charger. Marcus had borrowed mine the night before, and I couldn't find it anywhere in the bedroom or living room. He was at work. He teaches graphic design at the community college on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so I figured I'd check his home office. Marcus is particular about his workspace. He's a freelance designer, and he treats his office like a sanctuary. I usually respect that boundary, but I needed my charger, and besides, we'd been together for 3 years at that point. We were living together, splitting bills, talking about getting engaged. Surely I could check his desk drawer for a charger without it being a violation of privacy. The charger wasn't in the first drawer, or the second, but in the third drawer, the bottom one, I found a wooden box I'd never seen before. It was about the size of a cigar box, made of dark wood with a small brass latch. I should have closed the drawer. I should have just ordered a new charger on Amazon and waited 2 days. But there was something about the way the box was positioned, carefully centered in the drawer, as if it were important, that made me curious. I opened it. Inside were SD cards, dozens of them organized in neat rows, each one in a small plastic case with a label. The labels had dates written in Marcus's precise handwriting. I pulled one out at random. The date was from 2 years ago, January 15th, a few months after we'd started dating. I told myself I'd just look at one, just to see what it was. Maybe it was old design work, maybe it was photos from before we met, maybe it was completely innocent. I grabbed my laptop from the living room, plugged in the SD card, and opened the file. It was audio, a WAV file, over 2 hours long. I clicked play. At first, I didn't recognize the voices. There was background noise, dishes clanking, the hum of conversation, music playing. It sounded like a restaurant. Then I heard my own voice, and my stomach dropped. I'm just saying, I don't think I'm ready for that yet. It was me, from 2 years ago. I remembered this conversation. We'd gone to that Italian place downtown, the one with the outdoor seating. We'd been dating for about 4 months, and Marcus had brought up moving in together. I'd said I wanted to wait. But who had recorded this? Had Marcus? I fast-forwarded through the file, more restaurant conversation. Then later, and this made my skin crawl, I heard myself in what sounded like my apartment. My old apartment, the one I'd lived in before moving in with Marcus. "I'll call you later, Mom, love you too." I was on the phone with my mother. I remembered this too. She'd been worried about me dating someone new, wanted to make sure I was being safe. It was a private conversation in my own home. How had Marcus recorded this? My hands were shaking as I ejected the SD card and grabbed another one. This one was dated from even earlier, 3 years ago, before we'd started dating, before we'd even met, supposedly. I plugged it in and played the file. It was my voice again, but this time I was talking to my roommate, Sarah. I don't know, I just feel like I'm stuck, you know? Same job, same routine. I need something to change. This was from my old apartment. I'd been living there with Sarah before I met Marcus, before we'd started dating, before he'd supposedly stumbled into the bookstore where we'd randomly met. But if he'd been recording me back then, I spent the next hour going through SD cards. Each one was carefully labeled and organized, and each one contained hours of audio of me. Conversations with friends, phone calls with family, me talking to myself while cooking, me singing in the shower, me crying after a bad day at work. 3 years of my life, recorded without my knowledge. Some of the files were from my old apartment, which meant he'd somehow planted recording devices there before I even knew who he was. Others were from coffee shops I'd frequented, the gym I went to, my parents' house. He'd been listening to everything. I felt sick, violated. How long had this been going on? How had he done it? Why had he done it? And then I found the file labeled Master. It was huge, over 50 gigabytes. I almost didn't open it, afraid of what I'd find, but I had to know. It was a spreadsheet, the most detailed, comprehensive, insane spreadsheet I'd ever seen. Every conversation I'd ever had with Marcus or that he'd recorded of me was logged: date, time, location, topic, participants. But it wasn't just logging. Each entry had analysis. My emotional state was rated on a scale of 1 to 10. My receptiveness to suggestions was tracked. My compliance indicators were color-coded. There were formulas calculating when I'd be most likely to agree to certain requests based on factors like time of day, how recently I'd eaten, whether I'd had a good day at work. It was a research study. I was a research study. I scrolled through hundreds of entries. Thousands. Every interaction we'd ever had, analyzed and categorized. There were charts showing trends in my behavior, graphs predicting my reactions to certain scenarios, models forecasting when I'd be ready for the next relationship milestone. He'd gamified me, turned our relationship into an optimization problem. But the worst part was the section labeled Acquisition. I clicked on it, and a subfolder opened with dozens of documents. The first one was titled Initial Observation Phase and dated 3.5 years ago, 8 months before we supposedly met. It was a report, a detailed report about me. Subject spotted at Riverside Coffee on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings, consistently arriving between 7:15 and 7:30 a.m. Orders the same drink, large vanilla latte, extra shot. Sits at the corner table near the window, usually alone, working on laptop. Appears to be graphic design work based on visible screen content. No ring observed. No romantic partner observed during 2 weeks of surveillance. Potential target. Potential target. I read through the rest of the file with mounting horror. He'd studied me for months before we met, learned my routines, my habits, my favorite places. He'd figured out that I went to that bookstore every Sunday afternoon. He'd planned our random meeting down to the minute. And it hadn't stopped after we started dating. If anything, it had escalated. The recordings became more frequent, the analysis more detailed. There were predictions about when I'd say I love you, calculations about when I'd be ready to move in together, models forecasting my reaction to a marriage proposal. Our entire relationship was designed, engineered, manipulated. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the screen. Long enough for the sun to start setting. Long enough for my phone to buzz with a text from Marcus. "Hey babe, heading home. Want me to grab dinner?" I didn't respond. I copied everything to my laptop, every SD card, every file, every piece of evidence. Then I put the box back exactly as I'd found it and closed the drawer. When Marcus came home 20 minutes later, I was sitting on the couch, laptop closed beside me, trying to look normal. "Hey," he said, leaning down to kiss my forehead. "You okay? You didn't text back." "Yeah, sorry, just tired from work." He studied my face for a moment, that analytical look I'd always thought was concern, and nodded. "Want to order Thai?" "Sure." We ordered food, we ate in front of the TV, we talked about our days. He told me about a difficult student who wasn't turning in assignments. I told him about a problem with my latest freelance client. Normal couple conversation. Except now I knew he was probably analyzing every word I said, every expression I made, updating his spreadsheet with new data points. When we went to bed that night, I lay awake for hours, listening to him breathe beside me. I kept thinking about all the times he'd seemed to know exactly what I needed before I asked. How he always knew when to comfort me and when to give me space. How he'd timed his marriage hints to coincide with when I was feeling most secure in the relationship. I'd thought he was just incredibly intuitive, the perfect partner. But there was nothing intuitive about it. It was calculated, all of it. I waited 3 days before confronting him. 3 days of pretending everything was normal while I figured out what to do. I copied all the files to a cloud drive. I called a lawyer friend and asked hypothetical questions about recording laws and stalking. I looked at apartments in other parts of the city. On the third night, I waited until we'd finished dinner. We were in the living room, him working on his laptop, me pretending to watch TV. "I found your SD cards," I said. His fingers stopped moving on the keyboard. For a long moment, he didn't say anything. Then he closed his laptop carefully and set it aside. "When?" he asked. His voice was calm, too calm. 3 days ago, I was looking for my phone charger. He nodded slowly, like I'd just confirmed a hypothesis. And you've been sitting on this for 3 days? Interesting. That shows considerable restraint. More than I predicted, actually. The casual way he said it made my blood run cold. Predicted, I repeated. I had models for various discovery scenarios, he explained, still in that eerily calm voice. Most of them forecasted immediate confrontation or flight. The fact that you waited suggests you were gathering information, planning your response. That's actually really smart. He said it like he was proud of me, like I'd passed a test. You recorded me for 3 years, I said, my voice shaking. You stalked me before we even met. You've been manipulating me this entire time. Manipulating is such a negative word, he said. I prefer optimizing. I was optimizing our relationship, making sure we were compatible, ensuring long-term success. That's not normal, Marcus. That's not what normal people do. Normal people have a 50% divorce rate. Normal people waste years in incompatible relationships. I simply applied data science to the problem. He leaned forward, and for the first time, I saw something like excitement in his eyes. Do you know how rare it is to find someone you're truly compatible with? I wasn't going to leave that to chance. I studied you. I learned you. I became exactly what you needed. I needed someone who wasn't a stalker. You needed someone who understood you, he corrected. Someone who knew when you wanted to be alone and when you needed comfort. Someone who shared your interests but challenged you intellectually. Someone who could support your career while building his own. I gave you all of that. By lying to me, I optimized the truth, he said. There's a difference. I stood up, my legs shaking. I'm leaving. No, you're not. Something in his tone made me freeze. It wasn't threatening exactly, just certain, like he was stating a fact rather than making a demand. He stood up too, and I instinctively took a step back. He noticed, of course he noticed, and stopped moving. You can't leave yet, he said reasonably. We're not finished with the data collection phase. If you leave now, years of work will be invalidated. All the models, all the predictions, all the optimization, it would all be for nothing. I don't care about your models. But I do, he said. And more importantly, you should care about what they've created. Look at us. We're happy. Or we were until this conversation. We rarely fight. We communicate well. We have compatible life goals. The data works. The data works because you've been controlling every aspect of our relationship. Guiding, he corrected. Not controlling. You've always had free will. I just provided optimal conditions for you to make certain choices. I grabbed my purse from the couch. I'm going to stay with my sister. He moved to block the doorway. Not aggressively, just positioned himself there. Please, he said, and for the first time, there was something like genuine emotion in his voice. Just think about this logically. Where else are you going to find someone who knows you this well? Who's invested this much time in understanding you? Who can predict your needs before you even articulate them? Literally anywhere, I said. Because a relationship is supposed to be two people getting to know each other naturally, not one person stalking the other and running social experiments. Natural is inefficient. Natural is trial and error. Natural is wasting years with the wrong person until you finally stumble onto someone compatible. I eliminated the inefficiency. I stared at him, this man I'd lived with for over a year, and realized I'd never actually known him at all. The person I'd fallen in love with was a performance, a carefully calculated role designed to be my perfect match. Move, I said. We can work through this, he insisted. Give me a week. Let me show you the data. Let me prove that what we have is real, even if the methodology was unorthodox. A week? So you can add more files to your spreadsheet, run more experiments on me? So we can have a rational conversation about this. Look, I know the recording crossed a line, I can see that now, but the fundamental principle is sound. We're scientifically compatible. That's not something you just throw away. I pulled out my phone. If you don't move, I'm calling the police. He looked at the phone, then at me, and I saw him calculate something in his head. After a moment, he stepped aside. This isn't over, he said as I walked past him. You'll come back. The data predicts it. You always come back after we argue. We've never argued about you being a stalker before, I shot back. No, but we've argued about other things. Your pattern is anger, separation, cooling off period, reconciliation. Usually within 48 hours. I'll be here when you're ready to talk rationally. I wanted to tell him I'd never come back, that I was done, that I was going to take all his files to the police. But part of me was terrified that he was right. That he'd been manipulating me so effectively for so long that even now, knowing what I knew, I might fall back into the pattern. So I just left. I drove to my sister's house on the other side of town. She took one look at my face and pulled me inside. I told her everything, showed her some of the files I'd copied. She wanted to call the police immediately, but I asked her to wait. I needed to think. That was 2 weeks ago. Marcus texts me every day. Not long messages. He's too smart for that. Just little things. Saw your favorite flowers at the store today. Miss you. Made that pasta you like for dinner. Ate alone. Hope you're doing okay. Each message is perfectly calibrated. I can practically see the spreadsheet behind it, telling him exactly what to say to maximize the chance of a response. I haven't responded, but I also haven't blocked him, and that scares me almost as much as everything else. Because part of me, a small, stupid part, keeps thinking about what he said, about how well we work together, about how rare compatibility is, about how he knew exactly what I needed, exactly when I needed it. And then I remember that it wasn't magic, it wasn't intuition, it wasn't love. It was surveillance. My sister wants me to file a restraining order. My lawyer friend says I have a strong case for stalking charges. I have all the evidence. I have the recordings, the spreadsheets, the acquisition files, but I haven't done anything yet. I keep opening the master file on my laptop, scrolling through the endless data about my own life. There's something hypnotic about it. Seeing myself reduced to patterns and predictions, knowing that someone studied me that closely. Sometimes I catch myself wondering what his model predicts I'll do next. Whether this, staying with my sister, not responding to his messages, not going to the police, is all part of some pattern he's already mapped. And the worst part, the absolute worst part. Last night, I dreamed about going back. Not because I forgave him or because I thought we could work it out, but because I wanted to see the rest of the data. I wanted to know what else he'd discovered about me, what other patterns I couldn't see in myself. When I woke up, I realized he'd been right about one thing. He'd made himself necessary. He'd learned me so thoroughly that part of me feels incomplete without that mirror, even though the mirror was a prison. My sister keeps asking when I'm going to take the next step, restraining order, police report, something. But I keep putting it off. Maybe I'm gathering more evidence. Maybe I'm processing trauma. Maybe I'm in shock. Or maybe, and this is what terrifies me most, maybe I'm following the exact pattern his model predicted, the one where I eventually return. It's been 13 days now. He said 48 hours. He was wrong about that. But every day I don't take legal action. Every day I don't block his number. Every day I find myself rereading his messages. I think about the data, about 3 years of observations, about models built on thousands of interactions. How much can you really know about a person? Can you know them so well that you can predict their every move? Can you love someone and study them like a lab experiment at the same time? Marcus thinks so. Marcus believes love is just an optimization problem. Find the right variables, adjust the right parameters, and you can engineer a perfect relationship. And the truly horrifying thing, looking back at the last 3 years at how happy I was, at how perfect everything seemed, maybe he was right.